Welcome back to Neural Networking with Converge. I am your host, Ketan Paithankar, co founder and CTO of Konverge. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Mark Blaskovich, an IT executive with over 20 years of experience leading businesses to maximize IT investments and drive performance. As principal at GuideMark Group, Mark helps clients execute technology enabled growth strategies. His career includes key roles at Mindtree, Wipro, and Electronic Data Systems, where he managed large digital transformations and global alliances, including projects exceeding $40 million annually. Mark's expertise spans IT outsourcing, business transformation, and strategic consulting across multiple industries, making him a true leader in the field. Mark, it's great to have you with us today. So, Mark, thanks for again, joining us, and very excited to speak about this topic of chatbots, because this is something that everyone is now using it some or the other way, or they have used these chatbots. So my first question to you is, I'm sure you also must have used it. So my first question is, can you share a personal experience where a chatbot failed and not succeeded to meet your expectations, or was unable to provide the information you needed?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks so much for having me. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I agree with you. I'm constantly talking to people who are either excited about how machine learning and artificial intelligence is interacting with them, or frustrated by it. And since we're frankly in the early stages of some of this, at least available as consumers, I think there's some interesting conversations. So I do have two examples. They're recent. One is an example of when I needed to track a package. I had ordered something from one of the online services, and I wanted to track a package and had experience. The second one is about, I was reading a book and I wanted to rate the book. So we'll talk about each of those examples and how a chatbot interacted with that. So the first one's a tracking package. So I went to Google and typed in the package number, and Google took me to their website, and I was happily tracking their package when all of a sudden a chatbot popped up and basically took over the screen. Now, in all transparency, I went back just recently, and they no longer pop up, but basically the interaction is the same. And it said to me, "Hello, I'm your assistant here, your virtual assistant. I see you've tracked a package. Let me know how I can help." Well, I didn't need any help. I was happily tracking my package. So I thought I'd be nice. I typed in the words, "No, thank you." Well, it said, "Sorry, you'll have to choose one of these links that I provided to rephrase your question." And I don't see any links. So I don't even know what links they want. But now we're starting to go through this game sometimes where you're trying to guess at what the chatbot can understand. It's kind of like if you said to me, or if I said to you, "Okay, Ketan, what do you think I'm going to say next? Why don't you just say it?" So I didn't need any help. So I typed in this phrase, "No thanks, period. Please go away, period." Trying to be nice. And it said, I didn't quite catch that. Well, that's being conversational. And it actually gives me 5 different options, one of them being tracking a package. But I'm getting pretty angry right now. So I decide to respond in caps and see if that helps, right? So I type in caps, "I don't need help right now, exclamation point." It says, "I'd love to assist. For example, enter your tracking number." Now I had entered my tracking number before, but now it wants me to enter my tracking number. Now you can imagine, I'm now finding that this is beyond useless, right? And so I want to get rid of it. And so I go to the upper right-hand corner for an X box. There isn't one there. There's on the left-hand corner. I check it, and it now still doesn't go away. It wants me to know whether I want to end this chat or not. And of course I do. So my experience here has obviously taken me a couple minutes to be sidetracked, right? On something that I can do 9 times out of 10 without any help. And even if I needed help, what they were going to help me with was probably the same thing that I had already told them. So obviously not so good, and limited in its ability to understand. It gave me the impression that it could understand words like "no, thank you." That would be a fairly simple response, or "please, don't help me," or whatever. So these are simple responses that even what we want to call this, maybe a keyword recognition chatbot, it couldn't figure it out. So let's use example number 2 here. Example number 2 is I read books, and I like to rate my books on a scale of 1 to 5 and keep some notes on what books I read, right? And I happened to read a book about machine learning and the mathematics behind machine learning. I had taken a Stanford course a couple of years ago. I have some mathematics and statistics. I've got degrees in math and stat. So I have some experience here, and I read this book, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to rate this book. So I decided, well, what better use for a artificial intelligence than to help me understand how to understand an artificial intelligence book. So where would I go? Well, I went down to the bottom right-hand corner of my Windows app, or my Windows, and pulled up Microsoft Copilot. Right now, Copilot's pretty impressive these days. So what did it say? It said to me, "Ask me anything." Okay, now that's a tough one. You want me to ask you anything? Okay, well, I do have something I want to ask you. So I'll read verbatim what I typed in. I typed in, "I just finished a book and I want to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. What factors should I consider when I rate this book?" Question mark. Okay, that's 2 sentences. I've told it exactly what I want, but it's going to have to interrogate that and come back with a reasonable answer. And what's interesting about Copilot is it strokes you off. So its first statement is, "That's great. Here are some factors you might consider when rating the book." So it comes back with 8 ways to rate a book. And each of these has a point around it. So the first one is plot. What's the storyline? Is it engaging and well-structured? Blah, blah, blah. Characters, writing style, themes, pacing, enjoyment. So these are the 8 things it comes up with. But this doesn't exactly fit this book, right? Because this isn't a book like a novel. It's a book about, the math behind AI. So it asked me, considering these factors can help you in a well-rounded rating. What book did you just finish, if you might mind sharing? So I'm going to get to tell it what book I read, and then maybe it will interrogate that type of book and give me a better answer. Well, it does. So I say, "I finished this book about why machines learn. Does this impact your response?" That's my question to Copilot. So what does Copilot say? Well, of course, first they stroke me. "That's a fascinating book choice." Oh, really? I didn't think it was that. Okay. "Given the subject matter, you might want to consider a few additional factors to nonfiction and technical books." Now it gives me 5 new factors: clarity, depth, relevance, illustrations, and practicality. Totally different than the 8 it gave me before. So it asked me a question, wants to keep me engaged, I guess. Combining these with general factors I mentioned earlier should help you consider a comprehensive rating. How did you find this book overall? And I say to it, well, the book covered many important topics. This is me. The book covered many important topics and definitions of machine learning. However, the math was often too complex, and I felt like it didn't summarize the key points very well. This is my response to Copilot, okay? Well, let's see what it does with that. It says, "It sounds like you had a mixed experience with the book. Based on your feedback, here's some things you might consider." It gives me 5 of them, and it basically pulls the 5 out of the 8 plus 5 that it had given me before to help me come up with an even better rating. And then finally it says, on a scale of 1 to 5, did you give it? I say 2.5. And then it says, "It sounds like you had some valuable insights. 2.5 seems fair." So here I had a maybe 5-minute conversation with Copilot. Very interactive, very interesting, and reasonably helpful, right? Totally different than the example I had in the past. And where things are just basically going these days, right? Now my expectation for the corporate website is similar to my expectation with Copilot. And here we go. The bar just got raised, didn't it?
Yes. Yes, I think you brought a very important point that maybe the first interaction that you mentioned that you had with the courier company website probably was a chatbot which was of the original era as compared to the co-pilot, where you said that it really raised your what you say the expectations, because just want to highlight that this is the exactly thing that we want to talk about, is the evolution of the chatbots, that they first started with understanding the intent of the user, and then answering according to the flow, which was how the answers were coded, to now the generative AI slash LLM driven chatbots slash copilots, who are able to understand not only the intent but the underlying language as well, or the questions better, and then able to also go and find out that correct answer, and also cite the source from where they have taken the answers. So I think this is a great what you say start, or this is the evolution of the chatbot slash copilots that we want to highlight. But having said that, you have been in this career journey of 2 decades in IT, so I guess you have seen it all, like you mentioned. So how does it feel?
Yeah, I remember when you suggested to me, to think about what I was doing 20 years ago. I was working for an Indian IT firm, outsourcing what was called at that time business process outsourcing, or BPO. So we were standing up teams of people in large cities in India to do customer service calls, or financial analysis, or what have you. But more, I'll take us down one more path because I think it's really relevant. 2 decades ago, I also had the distinct opportunity to go to a lecture. And the lecture was a futurist and data scientist named Ray Kurzweil, who's the guy who said that singularity was going to occur roughly in 2029. Computers are going to get as fast as humans in terms of thought, etc. But even more important to that, back in 2004, 2005, and there's a TED talk we can put out for this particular topic, because he did a TED talk. But the message he gave me that really resonated was the fact that technology and all sorts of innovation occurs, in his opinion, at an exponential pace. So it's an exponential curve on a graph, right? Where we humans think in terms of linear, or along a path. So at any given time, we have a technology that we tend to extend in linear fashion, and then at some point in time, it gets transformed to a new technology, and that new technology then becomes our linear path again, until it's transformed again, and we then move on to the next one. And he was very clear about this 20 years ago, and I think it's an extremely important point. And some of my friends who say, well, golly, I don't know why we have AI, or whether it's going to be okay, and all this kind of stuff. Simply put, it's the transformational technology that we all must now embrace, and we're going to live on that linear path. So if you look back, we were the linear path 20 years ago was to give these people whom we were hiring better training, a better lifestyle, more tools and things. So that was our linear path until something called IVR came along, right? Interactive voice recognition. So now we moved to something where we could now ask questions like, 1 for sales, 2 for service, 3 for that. And even my fellow that's working on my house here, the general contractor, lamented. He says, I just can't stand it when the interactive voice starts in. It just frustrates the heck out of me. I can never be happy with that. So that's clearly not doing it. And I think that the next transformation, obviously, is the chatbot, where we have the basic, keyword recognition type chatbots, which can be very helpful, but need to be helpful in certain contexts. And then you can go into natural language processing and neural networks and iterative development of your responses, which really then move us into the next transformational mode. So I guess to answer your question around how this is transformed, it's transformed, in my opinion, in leaps while we stay on this linear path. And so our challenge, even as individuals, but maybe technologists as well as individuals who are, managing these large organizations, they have to move to the next transformational path and at least stay on that linear path for a period of time, because your competitors will certainly be doing that. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, you put it very well in the ending about the competitors and the linear versus how the technology, the graph it's changing. So it's also, I feel, important for the businesses to understand the same. Because the reason is that, like you said, there are certain productivity improvements that a business can do by leveraging what you say, the state of art technology changes. Whether it's about the natural language processing advancements or the Gen AI which has come in for generating of the text or the images, or where we are using large language models to do better information searches. So there are these different areas which a business may want to know about the technology and how it can leverage it. So that's where we now come to our discussions, that how can businesses leverage chatbots to improve customer service?
Yeah, so I guess based on what I've already said so far, I think it's fair to claim that conversational natural language processing chatbots are table stakes at this point. It's not like if you don't have that, you're behind the curve as opposed to on the curve. So let's start by saying that. And then the next question is that an accurate a chatbot? Is there a level of accuracy? But also, as you noticed, emotional intelligence is really important. In other words, getting some level of rapport in terms of the chatbot, just as the humans did, is essential to this. And so I would challenge companies to really utilize their chatbots and understand how their customers, or if it's an internal chatbot, which many companies are using these days to help their internal customers, so to speak. You have to understand how that customer's utilizing that, and then take that obviously into proofs of concept and take various use cases to logical extensions, so you can really understand how these are used. Once you do that, you'll learn very quickly whether this is valuable or not. So then you either start over, which is perfectly fine, or you enhance and engage what you've got. So those are some of the comments I'd suggest. Thoughts on your side about either the technologies you've seen that help here, or various use cases that have been beneficial to others?
Yes, so just to add to what you were saying, so I think in customer service, we talk about primarily three stakeholders. So one is, if you have those IVR lines where you can kind of dial in, and you have a customer service agent from where you get the answers from. So that is, of course, the customer is the central stakeholder that you have trying to get some information either on a product, or there is a difficulty like about a process for like how do you file a refund, or how do you go for a repeat order, or there is a process. So basically related to any kind of process questions that you have on the company's behalf. So the customer is the center or the centric stakeholder. Number one stakeholder. The customer service agent is another stakeholder, and the company itself is, I would say that, just as a perspective, is another stakeholder, because the company is the one who has set up the processes, right? Like how do you answer certain questions which are being asked from the customer side. Take an example of, like, I have an iPhone that I ordered from an e-commerce company, and now I want to return that iPhone. So So now that is where the company has set up a process like how do you process a refund or how do you process a return of the object. So that's why I feel that this is also a stakeholder which sometimes people forget about, and just when in customer service they only think of two stakeholders. One is the customer support agent who's going to answer the questions, and the customer. Now if we see the three stakeholders, so it can add a lot of value. The technology can add a lot of value in 2-3 areas. So one is you can actually fed the process knowledge the company has to the large language models, integrate them with the large language models, and the answers that you are thinking from a customer side can be answered by these chatbots, because they are now intelligent enough to understand the processes of the company. Take the same example of the return of the product, the iPhone that I ordered of the e-commerce company as an example. Or if the customer like me has called a customer service agent, like how do I return an iPhone? So sometimes the customer service agent may not have an idea, though the customer service agent is already trained on the processes of the company. But let's say the customer is asking a very specific question on return of the iPhone. Then the customer service agent can also utilize this chatbot to just get an answer quickly on the question that the customer has asked. So now if you see this scenario of the example which I gave you of returning the iPhone, it is actually helping all the stakeholders, and where it is adding value is it is reducing the time to respond, both on the company's behalf if there is a direct interaction between the customer and the company via a chatbot deployed on a website, or reduction in time to respond from the company's behalf via the customer service agent, because the customer service agent was able to find the answer quickly using the chatbot and give it back to the customer. So there is also an increase in the ability to respond, because now you can also save on the bandwidth of extracting the knowledge. So you increase the ability to respond. There is professionalism in place, because you have helped both the customer service agent or the direct chatbot which the customer had interaction with. So there is a degree of professionalism on the answers, because you have increased the touch points, intelligent touch points for the customer. And this experience that you have brought to the customer, be it via the customer service agent by calling that number or via having a direct interaction, can result in more sales and service, because at the prime, it's the customer experience that a company wants to give. So all these factors, the example which I gave, all these factors can actually result to these productivity improvements for the company.
Yeah, those are really good examples, and you actually reminded me of maybe an example here. Let's say you're a manufacturing company, a discrete manufacturing company, and you've acquired other companies similar to yours throughout the last few months and years. So you now have a portfolio of products and SKUs, parts that are from multiple companies all over the world at this point. And so somebody called, and you make what's called widgets. We'll make it easy. And so somebody wants to know if a particular widget is applicable for their particular situation or function or whatever they're going to use it for. So they say, I want this, I need this widget. Which one of your widgets fits my situation? Well, that's where, natural language processing is helpful, but also, large language models are really important, because there may be 3, 4, or 6, or 8 different widget types that fit this particular request. So isn't this great? Instead of trying to say, this is the widget for you, you may want to come back and say, I believe there may be several options. See how important it is to not be perfect or specific, but to say, these are several options. And oh, by the way, here's the options. Now, if region makes a difference. If this is different, if you're an automobile company and the California version is different than the rest of the United States, or if Canada is very different, so there might be a regional difference. There might be a different color or something. So whatever the difference might be of these widgets, you can then ask enough intelligent questions to get the user, whether it's either a consumer or somebody internally, to come back and actually come up with faster and a more precise answer. And there still may be two or three, but you see how much easier that could be for either the consumer or for the internal corporate customer when they're trying to chase down this widget, right? Or widgets,
Right.
whichever ones are
Yes.
appropriate. And this is a real life example because so many companies have now an enormously large database of
Yes.
products and parts, and
Yes.
it's just frustrating. And the good news there, though, is there's technologies now, there's platforms, obviously, that we're connected with that can offer a lot more capabilities around bringing these kind of things together. Did you want to comment on that at all?
Yes, I mean, very well said. The example, so there are these 3-4 areas that we always talk about. Is that we use it where when certain users want certain information on their fingertips, then it's very useful. Then the second thing is, in the first situation, you always have this challenge of enormous knowledge corpus that you have. Like in your case, you mentioned about the databases, enormous databases, but it can be unstructured data as well. So it can be documents, it can be structured data in the databases, it can be images as well, and sometimes you want multimodal data in videos as well. So that's the second thing that it can, the kind of data it can interact and find you that answer from. Then there is a third, dimension to it, and we'll talk about it in the challenges. But just want to highlight that you always wanted to cite the references from where it took the information from the database, so that any kind of data that you are given as an input from, so that you are sure that the answer that you have got is in line with the knowledge corpus that you gave as an input. Because anywhere if you cite a reference, it's always a good thing to get that from where the information was procured from. And the fourth thing is the user experience. So many a times, people undermine the user experience, but I want to highlight here the shape and form in which you are getting the information. So we right now have two ways of interaction from a user experience point of view. It can be a voice thing as well, because voice is something that we have started processing, and it can be a text only information exchange. But from a user experience, you also have to consider that where do you integrate it in the workflow. So for example, if you are trying to, like you said in the example that you gave, so probably you wanted this information to be extracted from an ERP system that the company was using. So from a user experience point of view, you may want that Copilot/chatbot to actually integrate and sit in your ERP ecosystem. Or you have a Microsoft Teams interface, so you want to set it inside the Teams, so that the user adoption increases and you bring a holistic user experience. So that's why I think the fourth dimension is also equally important from a user adoption perspective. How do you do the integration with the existing workflow so that your users, they feel comfortable for using this kind of a system?
Yeah, I think those are really good points, especially even the last one. And haven't we seen that you can virtually integrate into any platform, whether it's an ERP platform or whether they're using a standard browser, or whether they've developed an app that they're using and you want to integrate it into the app. There's the APIs are just almost there's just so many. That's typically not the challenge whatsoever, right?
Right.
The challenge might be how the data's where the data is and how it happens to be defined in these databases. How raw is it? How golden is it? Those will be the questions that'll take you down the path of trying to understand how to best use it. And while large language models and machine learning can get a long ways into that, it still has limitations, doesn't it? So the world is constantly bumping up against those limitations, at least today. But as we move down that linear path, I'm sure we're going to address many of those. Every few weeks and months we'll get better at that. So I'm not at all worried about that. That'll only get better, I assume. And so it's almost like the point of you might as well start. We've had some experiences where people are saying, well, I want to do this, but the accuracy is just not there. Well, yes, but then the accuracy going out as a human being to try to find that is equally challenging, if not worse. So why not start with something and then try to figure out how to massage data better, install it into different lakes and databases. Go to some place where you can then get better at this, as opposed to saying this isn't something I can do, because the front end of this is actually quite intuitive and easy right now, relatively speaking. It's really the data that's probably the harder part of it, wouldn't you say, as you guys get into this?
Right. I think rightly you said that data is one of the potential challenges or risks associated with implementing chatbots in an organization. But do you see any other, perhaps besides the data, that can be something the organization should keep in mind?
Well, we've talked about it, but I really think the whole idea of having good emotional intelligence is really important. How you interact. Human beings are very irrational people, and computers are not irrational by and large. So you have to understand how the rationality of a human would work with this. So it's almost the interaction of this that's gonna make or break it, especially among certain groups. If you're rolling this out to your sales force. Sales forces are, quick to come in and quick to get out, and they want an answer fast and they want to move on. So if that's your group, then that's what you have to do. If your group is a bunch of clinical analysts who are analyzing radiology screens, then obviously that's the quick in and out is not what they're after. It's more the accuracy of your reading of the image, I guess. So you really have to understand your client and how to do that. The other one is I don't think we mentioned this, but being on the channel, at least in chatbots, is really important. I think most consumers would say that they don't get to a human fast enough when the chatbot can't help them, and so you have to understand how far you can go and what your limitations are as a chatbot. And once you hit those limitations, you should really move on. And the third thing is, it gets back to this question of, do I have to guess at what the chatbot can do, or would the chatbot just honestly tell me what it can do, and I'll decide whether it can help me? I'm happy to tell it whether it can help me or not, and I'm happy to tell it what I want if I know what it can help me with. Those are very simple words that I just used, but for some reason I spend a lot of time trying to guess at what a chatbot can do, and it's wasted time. So it's so easy to clarify what you can do and what you can't do, and then move on. And it really simplifies the user experience, and certainly makes it a better one. So those would be some of the more soft skills that I would suggest that you incorporate into your buddy, the chatbot.
Yes. Very well said. I'll just add a couple of things again
Sure.
To your answer. So I feel that the thing that you said, it's very important to communicate to the users in the organization what it can do and what it cannot do. So you may want to have like a generative AI slash LLM chatbot guidelines, which you issue as a document to the users from an adoption point of view, that what you can ask and what you cannot ask. Second thing, I feel that it's an issue of hallucinations, so that can potentially be a risk. So one of the ways you mitigate is by
You might define, if I may interrupt, you might define what hallucination is. It may mean different things to different people, but hallucination is what to a chatbot?
Oh yeah,
to
so
a large language model.
yes, so it may give some erratic answers to what just at an overview level I'm
It goes
explaining
down
this.
a weird path,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah,
and
it
then
goes
comes up to a nonsensical answer as
Answer, yeah.
opposed to going down a path to come up with a
basically
better answer.
yeah.
Yes.
So basically,
Yes.
the answer will not make any sense to the user what the user is looking for. That's how we just simply put it.
Yeah.
But the technical definitions, I don't want to go into the technical ones, but just at an overview level. So how do you do that? Is perhaps there can be 2-3 ways. So you just need to look at from that perspective that you reduce on that hallucination metrics. Another thing is the source of truth, which I want to highlight here, that you should always cite the answers from where it picked from that knowledge corpus that you gave as an input. And the fourth thing is capturing the feedback every time you get an answer, so that once you
Good
start
point.
capturing the feedbacks, then you know where it is going wrong, or what is exactly happening at the user experience level. So this gives you that array of improvement as you go go on implementing it, and you kind of improve it over a period of time. So these are just the 3-4 caveats that I would say.
Yeah, and I know we're almost to the end of our time, so I'll throw this out as a maybe even a final comment. Employing a chatbot is kind of a team sport. In other words, instead of thinking the chatbot being the answer or the total source of information, you should think of it as an interactive team sport between the user and the underlying models behind it. So, and when it's a team, then they work together to do the best possible thing, right? And that's how a good chatbot works. Versus a chatbot, if I asked Copilot the question, I'm a big baseball fan, and I'm lamenting the fact that my baseball team didn't make the playoffs this year. So who won the World Series in 2002? Well, there's only one answer to that, right? And I don't know what it is. I think it's the Los Angeles Angels, but I'm not positive. There's one answer, so that's easy. But if I said who's going to win next year and who's going to have the best pitching staff next year, all of a sudden, or bowling staff, I'll try to make it sound like it on your side of the pond as well. The point there is, those are questions that could be iterative, and you now start to work together to come up with your favorite answer here, and it's really that sort of interaction, the team sport, that becomes the best chatbot for your organization. I'll share that as a final point.
Yes, just to conclude our discussion, is what I would say and highlight these points, that it is, in order to have a successful implementation of the chatbots, I feel that it is important to define roles for the chatbot as well as the humans, just to see the simplicity versus the complex inquiries, and how they are getting handled from a business point of view. It is always good to humanize the chatbot as much as possible, or as much as the technology permits. Also, we need to think of how we can do that hybrid approach and the handoff point that you made between the chatbot and the human who is operating the system. And from a customer service perspective, where it has a real potential of adding a lot of value to the business, it is important how we can leverage the natural language processing / LLM to perform perform or help the 3 stakeholders that we talked about: the company, the customer service rep, and the customer, to bring that experience to all of them. And it is very important to do the measurement and constant refinement so that we improve the experience over time.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, this has been fun. I hope it's been fun for the folks who watch this as well. It's been an exciting experience. Always good to see you.
Same here, Mark. So we should probably what you say for our audience for this session, take the feedback as well, because that would be again measurement,
yes.
Constant refinement for us.
Boy, I can use it. Yes, I'd love to hear feedback about
Yes.
this. This will be interesting. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Sounds good.
Definitely.
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity, and look forward to getting with you again soon.
Thanks, Mark. I hope we interact again and get on another episode of this discussion that we had on the chatbot /copilots. Thank you, Mark,
Sure.
for joining.
You're welcome.